It's time again for better data, better results. In this episode, we shift away from operational issues to focus on the finance side of industrial chemical management. For those who invest in a chemicals program to achieve better business outcomes, the question of the ROI of the chemical program is always top of mind. As such, operators may ask themselves how to measure and project chemical costs. One of the biggest challenges for operations managers or chemical program advisors is making sure that the money they are paying for chemical treatment is actually leading to better outcomes related to asset integrity, flow assurance, health and safety, and compliance. If we aren't getting more out of our chemical program than we put in, then we need to change things up to get a better ROI. And in many cases, chemical programs are not cheap. In the oil and gas sector, for example, chemical management is one of the top contributors to operating expenses behind manpower and electricity. Accurately measuring chemical costs and projecting them into the future helps us focus treatment programs and avoid a negative ROI. And let's be clear, we aren't just talking about general ledger cost measuring. We don't just need to know how much we spent on chemicals in general, we want to get into the nitty-gritty details. For instance, how much money did we spend on corrosion inhibitor in the third quarter in the Delaware Basin? Or which chemicals cost fluctuated the most month to month in 2019? Or how much should we expect to spend on hydrate inhibitors over the coming colder months? These are important, specific questions that we need better data to answer. Fortunately, we can do that with WellAware. Let's jump into the WellAware on-demand chemical platform to see how we get that done. So here we're looking at a particular site in the WellAware on-demand chemical platform. And what we're charting here is the injection rate set point of the chemical pump and the chemical price that we're being charged by our vendor. So the set point is in orange and the price is in teal. And one of the things we'll notice is that the set point is occasionally changing month to month. It starts out at about 7 gallons per day, drops to 6, and then jumps up to 10 towards the beginning of September. The other thing we notice is that the chemical price changes. This happens occasionally due to commodities pricing or switching to a new vendor, but prices for chemicals can change depending on a lot of factors, so we need to keep that into account. WellAware allows chemical vendors to upload their current pricing into our platform so we can constantly track how much is being spent on chemicals. So what we can get from this injection rate set point and our chemical price is an expected cost or a projected cost of chemical spend day to day. So if we plot that here, we can see how the projected cost is really a multiplication of the injection rate set point with the chemical price. So we see how it changes when the set point changes and when the chemical price changes as well. So for this particular site right now, we're projecting to spend about $85 a day in chemical. But now let's overlay the observed injection rate on top of the pump injection rate set point. And what we see is we had a few days where we didn't inject chemical. This could be due to an issue with a chemical pump, could be that the site was down. For whatever reason, we didn't inject chemical, and that affects our actual chemical spend. So if we chart the actual chemical spend against the projected spend, we see that it's different. Now we use this chart view to explain a point, but what we really want to do is show how to measure and project chemical costs in aggregate using WellAware reports. So I'm here in the WellAware reports platform, and we've got a nifty chemical spending report. What this is going to do when I click on it is it's going to allow me to run a report to track my historical and projected chemical spending and note any differences. So let's say I wanted to look at chemical spending for the third quarter of 2020. So I'll go from July 1st to September 30th. And we'll do this for all of our sites groups. Now, I have the ability to choose which types of chemicals and actually which specific chemicals I want to track. To get started, we'll look at all of our chemicals. We'll click OK, and we'll run this report to see what that chemical spending looks like. So what we're looking at is the chemical spending report for all sites on this tenant for corrosion inhibitor and scale inhibitor. And what we see is the site, the chemical type, the chemical name, which are all captured during the installation of the WellAware device. And then we have our expected spend versus our actual spend over this time period. So in this case, the third quarter of 2020. So we can see by site how much we've spent versus how much we expected to spend, and we can also see that in aggregate. We can also see an average monthly expected spend versus an average monthly actual and compare differences. And then we can actually see the projected cost for the next 30 days. And the reason that's valuable is it's not just based on the current rate or the current set point in the chemical price. WellAware actually looks at historical usage and historic variance against the set point to project those costs to try to create an accurate measure of the future. And this helps us understand how our chemical costs might change month over month. And this is just scratching the surface. There's a number of reports that can be created and have already been created to be used to help you project and understand your chemical prices. For help getting set up with reports, just ask WellAware Client Success or visit wellaware.us/chemical.